And when you get to the side, you now see people who are nowhere before, and today they own houses, they own cars, they have their children in good schools, they can eat well and all that.
My name is Sunday Oyo. The business is okay because for what we are doing, I have a wife and 4 kids, and I'm living well with my kid with the business because what we are making per week is okay for me and my family.
The success recorded in the recent past years, which is already attracting investors, more national and international investors are invited to come and invest and partake of the riches of investing in aquaculture.
And designed by the Almighty.
Someone who is a Christian is someone who lives a life of Jesus Christ. And the life of Jesus Christ is a life of sacrifice.
Yes.
Actually a passionate baker. I don't rest until everything is done.
When I entered university, anytime I'm broke, I'll make cupcakes and go and sell to the other students.
Decorating cake it's an artistic thing, and art is, dynamic.
Join us on Baker's World every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on the network service of the NTA. Baker's World, celebrating creativity. Don't miss it.
Understanding the universal language and timeless qualities that every great art piece exudes is a quest for many. Art is a means of communication, a symbol of humanity, depicting aesthetics in various forms. Art connotes strength and visibility as a way of preserving heritage, promoting culture, and painting pictures of our daily realities. This young artist examines tales of the eyes, mind, and body through his works.
My work is more of the real life and of ordinary Nigerians, the women, the children. It's not a painful art, it's just their joys, their moments of doubt, their moments of sorrows too. I draw with raw charcoal. raw charcoal on cloth. I just burn them and just make the charcoal.
A combination of brevity with comprehensive suggestiveness that appeals to one's sensibility. One cannot ignore the depth each art piece possesses. But how well do people appreciate and understand these artworks?
You know, you can see they are about to cross the road. So I saw the painting that you look before you leap. The child at the mother's back is relaxed. That means she trusted the mother so much that she's capable of protecting her from any danger.
When I look at that painting or this one, it tells me something, and I'm able to understand the strength of a woman. And looking at this painting, I could easily relate with the average Nsukka woman. I'm from Nsukka. That's the strength of the Nsukka woman.
I like the media charcoal work. I've used it before, and I like the way he's using it in his pictures to create definition, to show light and shadow. Yeah. So particularly, I like this artwork because of the theme, showing independence, and because I like being an independent woman, and I believe every woman should be independent and they can be able to do anything that they desire to do.
One or two things that I'll pick here is that it teaches us about what are we proposing in the narrative structures. Look at the woman in the chair is showing that, okay, you can better yourself where you are, not necessarily when you move to cities. So people in the rural area, they too, if you are content with what you have.
Every art piece speaks to the soul, with its peculiar references to details, although we may sometimes get lost while trying to understand its central message, and this can only be related by the artist.
This is one of my favorite pieces. The piece is actually recent. I title the work The Gaze. For some reason, something captures their attention, and whatever they are looking at, it's not making them sad, it's not making them happy. Children actually look up to their parents to see whatever they are doing. And there's this saying that history repeats itself. And so I try to use this piece to show a girl, to show the world whom she is in the light of day. And I used it to apply to relationships between people, to apply to marriages. I see openness and transparency as one of the strong keys to a successful, cordial relationship.
Every artist has a unique approach and diversity to its interpretation. However, despite its broad approach to our daily realities, art appreciation and collection still poses a major challenge in this part of the world.
Promoting art in primary schools especially, we try to encourage children from the beginning, the primary schools, the importance of arts. They will understand that it's also a profession that somebody can easily really enjoy and express themselves through.
I think art gives a lot of story about a country or people or a nation, and we should always preserve artwork. Because it will be used in future generations to tell a story of the past.
We don't really blame those that don't appreciate art. You have to have conquered, food as a problem to be able to appreciate things like luxurious things. Most of us, we live a life of survival. It starts from building ourselves as a nation first before we can actually appreciate art.
Art is no doubt a benchmark for nation building, a great assurance to sustainable growth, especially with the strings of creative expressions all around the country. If only we can look within and let every art piece we set our eyes on speak to our minds and body, then art appreciation will become more valuable.
as a world emergent industry and one of the fastest growing food production subsector in the world. And due to the apparently declining global fish catch, aquaculture is crucial for food security and nutrition for a rapidly growing global population in the nearest future. Approximately 200 million people around the world are involved in fishing and aquaculture, one way or the other, with efforts to provide around 100 million tons of fish every year. This will mean an average consumption of 16 kilos per person, but in many places where fish is the principal source of animal protein, average consumption is far higher. Much of the bountiful harvest is produced not just by large industrial operators, but by local small and medium-scale producers. And do you know that half the fish supplied to world markets come from developing countries? In Africa, Latin America, and Asia, Africa is blessed with abundant resources, human and natural, that are only now being properly tapped and harnessed. The success story of aquaculture abound in Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi. And we bring the focus of the world onto glaring cases in Nigeria, which is the Ijebu-Iriwe Fish Farm village in Ijebu-Ode, which rears the African catfish.
There is no end to knowledge, and the industry too, there is still room for them to learn more. So mountain training and training and retraining is also a key to enhance productivity.
Iriwe Farms has gained international recognition from bodies like FAO of the United Nations, DFID, JICA, UNDP.
On our own part is to source for more fund for them, because really speaking, there is no way you can really grow well in this kind of business without adequacy of resources. Without borrowing, without getting some loans, there is a limit on the growth. With 4,927 pounds, if they have 2 billion, access to 2 billion naira, that may not be even enough as working capital in a year.
We're one of the founders of who started aquaculture in Ghana, Crystal Lake, in collaboration with Water Research Institute. We had to do a trial to assess whether the local species could grow competitively in Ghana. And so this was partly funded by Danida. So we did that, and we established that the local species could grow competitively in Ghana. This is, of course, and taking into consideration how much tilapia is being sold in Ghana. So it proved that aquaculture could be viable in Ghana.
What we are giving out today, because previously, like I told you, you harvest your fish at the end of 6 months, and you may ask yourself, are they be hatched in the cage? But now, farmers who are the customers tells you, look, Mr. Limo, your products are good, your fingerlings are very good. Where is the source? And we tell them the source. And I'm happy because it's a win-win situation. You grow, I grow. So whenever I get the feedback from the customers, it makes me happy. And also, we try to do extension services. All our customers that we supply, we make sure every month we go and check their body weight, help them to calculate the biomass, and advise them on what feed change, what you have to do, what you don't have to do. And I think it's helping the industry a lot.
I started, hatching and selling fingerlings. I started with 3,000, but right now I am selling 4 million of fingerlings and 2,000 fry. I went to Nigeria last year. I learned, wow, that was a shock to me, because when I saw the extent and the progress that our fellow Nigerians are doing, when I came back, I said, that is a revolution. The catfish industry in Nigeria is a revolution that is required here in Malawi.
As the global demand increases and more opportunities are created, better and improved nutrition for children with dietary requirements met by the consumption of fish. New job opportunities like feed processing, fish fingerlings, construction of net, and other fish farming related activities to drastically and effectively reduce poverty and also feed growing population.
Of all our enterprise development programs, of all of them, aquaculture is the number one that has helped so many people out of poverty. Because nobody wants to die inside poverty. Able to tell them, look, there is a way out of this poverty, and they are ready to. And when you get to the side, you now see people who are nowhere before, and today they own houses, they own cars, they have their children in good schools, they can eat well, and all that.
My name is Sunday. The business is okay because for what we are doing, I have a wife and 4 kids, and I'm living well with my kid with the business because what we are making per week is okay for me and my family.
The success recorded in the recent past years, which is already attracting investors, more national and international investors are invited to come and invest and partake of the riches of investing in aquaculture.
NTA, you can't beat the rich. Dab. Yes.
One day as I did dab, they go. Now I see my neighbor on top the electric pole. Don't be how my hold so. Before. So? Climb every day. Come on electric bill. You not gree pay. Waiting concern you for there. I beg you. Come over here. Okay, oh. I don't talk my own. As I dab reach house. Yay! Fire! Fire! My brand new flat screen.
Hold up.
Waiting concern you for there. I beg you, come over here. Government property, now my property. If you don't come down now, I go report. Don't be only report. Now report card.
Dab. Yes.
Nwanyị ọma. Tomato, just tomato. Asampete. Fine woman. I say make I salute you proper.
No, sir. Bring pepper soup on this table. I will pay. Just bring for me too. I will for master. Don't worry, blame for him. I will pay. Change my friend.
Hello, it's a warm welcome to Sports Ray, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And give George.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
Today, some private institutions are competing with some of the best.
Contemporary issues with personalities from diverse backgrounds.
We'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We, of course, begin with a great deal of apologies to our viewers for the delayed transmission of today's broadcast. We had a number of technical glitches, but happily our engineers have been able to sort out those glitches. Kieran?
All right, that's it's not a very good day for us this morning, but we are glad to be back on air with this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Now, ECOWAS is the regional body or institution created by heads of state and government to drive economic integration of countries within the West African sub-region.
And of course, Kirian, you've just said that on the basis that we are having for our conversation segment today, the ECO currency. Now, as you said, ECOWAS was conceived in 1975 with the ultimate objective of integrating the national economies of all member countries.
You're quite right, Kingsley, and according to proponents of integration models, economic integration is done in several stages, and usually it begins with a preferential trading area or free trade area, and ultimately harmonized economic and monetary union.
All right, now the EU, that's the European Union, would be a good example to cite here, Kirian. But talking about economic and monetary union, that's with regard to the EU. Now, if you recollect, sometime in July last year, at an ECOWAS summit held here in Abuja, heads of state and government of the sub-region agreed to launch a single common currency known as the ECO this year.
And of course, the ECO was adopted as a common currency about 21 years ago, Kingsley.
That's right.
And after multiple postponements, it was agreed that the new currency would be in use by all member countries in 2020, that's this year. And it is envisaged that the adoption of the ECO will remove all barriers to cross-border trade, make it easy for countries to move and do business with ease.
Now, indeed, besides the benefits you've just mentioned, Kirian, there is also a raft of other economic benefits attached to the use of a common currency. For instance, it makes it easier to transact business without worrying about exchange rates or issues of conversion to other currencies.
And for implementation purposes, and because not all countries are economically aligned, member countries are to meet 5 primary and 5 secondary convergence conditions, which unfortunately no country has been able to meet, prompting multiple postponements.
Well, regardless, that of course leads us to the crux of our conversation today on Good Morning Nigeria. As it has turned out, the adoption of the common currency among countries in the West African sub-region has become embroiled, as it were, in regional, if not global politics.
Precisely. On December 22nd, the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara, in the company of President of France, Emmanuel Macron, announced the decision to abandon the CFA franc, currently in use by the Francophone West African countries, while Nigeria says she's studying the situation and would respond in due course. Discussion on the adoption has been intense on the public space. So on Good Morning Nigeria today, we take up the matter with experts on the economy and regional integration. My name is Kirian Umayo. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria this week. And also, let's welcome Kingsley, who has been on a deserved break. He's now back on set.
Well, thank you very much, Kirian. And certainly it won't be out of place to say Happy New Year to you and indeed to our viewers around the world. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. As we said at the beginning, this is a delayed broadcast in the sense that we are about 45 minutes late into the program on account of the technical issues that we had. So we've skipped our news bulletin, but we're also skipping the business segment and taking a short break. Now, when we return from the break, we shall have our newspaper review. Bayo Atuebi is already in the studios with us.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 50 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Gogi Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnership with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Lagos State Government, Canon, Delta Airlines, Royal Caribbean, Tour Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@gogeafrica.tv. Goge Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
Ankara shopping with 5 That one no fine. No, nice. No, it's too dull. This one. Oh wow, it's beautiful. Omo, this fabric. It gon' fade though. Yeah. Look, make I tell you something. The new area Ankara, it go take good care of it. No try. So right. Not lie. Not true. But the price cheap.
Try new Ariel on your Ankara and colors now.
Not so fast.
Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down. Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone is arranging,
Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin. You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad, or even end up in prison.
My name's Mr. Muftau Abiodun Balogun. We started this business 4 years ago, and this is the production outlet where we do about 4,000 to 5,000 birds per day. With the closure of the border recently, we've been experiencing massive surge in demand. Our sales per day now is going to be between 15 to 20,000 birds. We needed to expand all avenues because of the multiplier effect it's creating. And the most interesting thing about this closure is that many of my farmers today are farmers we recruited recently and they are young graduates. What the government is doing will lead us right. And I can tell you, if the government sustains this thing, sky will not even be our limit.
Let's now welcome Bayo Otebi this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. Bayo, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kid. Good morning.
All right.
Good morning, Kingsley. Happy New Year. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right.
Time for newspaper review. I'll start with the Daily Sun newspaper. At the right-hand side of the nameplate, we have Army pounds bandits in Katsina, Zamfara, kills 100. With a rider, how Boko Haram kidnapped soldier, wife, others, according to witness. The story is on pages 4 and 39 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Now, the lead story this morning is on the judgment by the Supreme Court. Say, as Supreme Court rules on Guba pools, tension as Ihedioha or Tom Tambuwal no fate today. The story is on page 40. And other striking stories below that. Illiteracy, North sitting on time bomb, says Masari, is on page 44. 2023, crisis brews in PDP as stakeholders move against seconders and others. With a rider, tension mounts in state chapters. It's on page 6. Now, we are yet to get 37 billion naira National Assembly renovation budget. That's according to FCDA. The story is on page 6. And Soku Oil Wells, Bayelsa appeals judgment. That's all about the headlines here.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Punch, you have a raft of headlines. Panel probes 14.3 billion naira NEPSA fund in private account. That's on page 30. TCN, that is Transmission Company of Nigeria, to push for Disco's recapitalization. 11 airlines inactive failed to renew licenses. Aregbesola blames porous borders for arms proliferation and illegal aliens. That's page 18. 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate. Oshibajo and governors hailed troops on Armed Forces Remembrance Day. That's page 11. EFCC has frozen Shehu Sani's accounts. That's attributed to his aide. Details on page 16. Lead story says Operation Amotekun. That's the kicker there. Carry illegal arms, be arrested. Police warn OPC and hunters. That's page 2. With 2 riders, it says Anambra and Enugu differ on Southeast security outfit and South-South delays project. Southeast governance Ohaneze should be ashamed, says IPOB. Now you see the photograph on the front page of the Punch there. It's in connection with the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. It says residents of the Mogadishu Barracks, Abuja, during the Armed Forces Remembrance Day church service at the National Christian Center in Abuja. That was yesterday. Unfortunately, Bayo, take a look at the flags that they are waving. That's not exactly the Nigerian flag. The Nigerian flag in a white segment does not admit of the coat of arms. All right, then right at the foot of the front page of the Punch, don't stop Benue and Nasarawa military operations. Tom and Sule tell Buhari, page 16. On pages 4 and 5, cobbler rapes graduate, shares nude video with friends. Anxiety as Supreme Court rules on Sokoto governorship poll today. Well,
let's start with the issue, the success against bandits, particularly in the Northwest. About 100 bandits, including 6 of their commanders, have been neutralized in Zamfara and Katsina states. Leadership reports that the operations, which was called Hadarin Dagi, which literally means storming the forest, yielded this result. So far, about 15 AK-47 rifles have been recovered. There were also gun-propelled grenades, as well as 25 motorcycles that were seized. Captain Ayoba Mioni Orisa says that the flushing of the bandits was for Anka, Maru, Bukuyum, and Jibia local government areas. 2 custom officers who had earlier on been abducted were also rescued. This is sequel to what the spokesman for the 17th Brigade Nigerian Army said, that the bandits, after feeling the oppressions of the military power, have now come up to say that they want to embrace peace talks. Meanwhile, the army says that there is not going to be any hideout for any of the bandits. Actually, the soldiers have taken the battle to the bandits right in the forest. And the bandits now are embracing peace. You recall that the initiative was started in Zamfara State when the commissioner of police went to the bandits in the forest to negotiate. And many of them actually gave up their arms. The same thing, Katsina State followed suit. But of recent, there has been an upsurge in Zamfara and Katsina again. And this is why you have this critical army operation of Sharandaji and Hadarindaji.
What is good news here is the fact that the battle has been taken to the forest. Because if you allow them to have a kind of a base where they strike from, then they will, be in a position to be doing what I've been doing. If you take the fight to them, directly to them, because the Nigerian army is better equipped, right? They have intelligence, right? So if you take it to them, they will surrender. That is the only way, because it's a ragtag arrangement.
That is the positive result we are seeing now. Also today, students are now heaving a sigh of relief. Joint Admission Matriculation Board has suspended the usage of National Identification Number as a prerequisite for the 2020 UTME registration. JAMB had announced that it will no longer insist on National Identification Number. So all candidates who are to register for the 2020 UTME will only require to indicate, send their candidate's name to 55010 to create a profile for registration. The registration for 2021 perhaps might now require the usage of a national identification number. The other clearing story which Kingsley read is about the operation Amotekun, which literally means leopard. Amotekun is leopard in Yoruba, and that is the security operation launched by the 6 southwest states last Thursday. Already there are indications that police are not very comfortable. The police in Ekiti, Ogun, and Ondo State have warned that persons who belong to the Amotekun operation, if they dare to bear arms which are illegal, they will be held accountable. Similarly, Lagos, Osun, and Ekiti are planning to recruit about 1,320 operatives under the security outfit Amotekun. You recall that in June last year, following spate of kidnapping and some killing, the governors in the 60s gathered and introduced the idea of Amotekun. Meanwhile, again in Ogun State, the command has announced that any member of the Odua People's Congress seen bearing firearms will be arrested. Meanwhile, they are hoping to draw the operatives for the Amotekun from the institutions like the OPC, the Hunters Association, as well as the Community Security Awareness Initiative and the Agbe Koya groups.
All right, Bayo, I think you've touched on the relevant stories on the front pages of both papers that we have read. Kieran,
now let's look at the editorial very briefly. It's coming from the Daily Trust newspaper. Diligence for a 2 nuclear power plant in Akwa Ibom. Now, in the continuing efforts to boost the power situation in the country, the federal government is considering the nuclear energy option. This option, in addition to hydro, solar power, gas and coal currently in use, will certainly complement the energy mix in the country. In pursuance of this, the government has identified Okuiboku in Utu council area of Akwa Ibom as the site for a nuclear energy plant. But predictably, the plant has run into a storm of protests from the inhabitants of the area. The reasons are understandable. Nuclear plants the world over have a tendency to be problematic with lasting, devastating consequences. Bayo, this Okuiboku is not. This area has been mapped out over nearly 20 years ago.
Yes, nuclear is one of the alternative power sources. Presently, Nigeria is in the ambit of exploiting hydro, gas, as well as solar. But nuclear is also an alternative, just as coal. But they have their challenges. Coal has its challenge of devastating the environment. Nuclear too has its overwhelming devastation, and two critical instances have been cited by this editorial. We all recall the Chernobyl bitter disaster, and also the one in Pennsylvania, the east-west nuclear disaster. And what the editorial is saying that there has to be due diligence to ensure that hazards that is due to people and the environment are limited, and such should be taken into consideration by engaging the local government, the Akwa Ibom state government, and the federal government. Also, the people in the location, the leadership, the local government area, the women groups and youths, the editorial is saying should be engaged critically before they do. And most importantly, environmental impact assessment must be carried out to ensure that people's mind will be at rest with the nuclear.
You see, nuclear plant is not
nuclear power plant.
You
saw what happened in Japan, following the tsunami, Fukushima. I think that there are things that we should take one step at a time. We have a major challenge, for instance, managing gas, LPG. You saw the explosion in Kaduna. And you see the way people deal with crude oil pipelines, almost with reckless abandon, and the disaster that arises from time to time. Is it a nuclear power plant that will be in a position to manage?
We're not just talking about nuclear power. What about the personnel to man that kind of installation? Very complex and sophisticated installation. But globally, power supply through nuclear is not even up to 20%.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's no need for Nigeria to pursue that course for now because of the dangers inherent in managing nuclear power plants.
We just have to be certain that in our own national interest, we are not being goaded into this adventure by some foreign powers or by some other interested economic powers that will ensure that at the end of the day you continue to pay them for maintenance, you pay them for manpower, you pay them on and on. It might just lead to economic enslavement.
All right, Bayo, we'd like to thank you at this moment for us to have time to take care of other items, for this particular edition of the program. Of course, we had a delay there, commencement of the show today.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. Good to see
you
again tomorrow.
3 states now they have their attention at the Supreme Court following the hearing in the cases that will go there today.
I think before 12 noon today, we'll know the direction that the court, the judgment will go. Now, let's take a short break. When we return, we should, of course, go into the major issue for our conversation today on Good Morning Nigeria. Stay with us.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
It is indeed befitting to honor the memory of the gallant hearts of the men who paid the supreme sacrifice to keep the country united.
President Muhammadu Buhari enjoins all ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to these accounts. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Nigeria is our country, and it's the only country we have. Irrespective of religion, tribe, the heroes of our past did their best to take Nigeria to where it is today. It will be unfortunate, I repeat, unfortunate, absolutely, if we don't keep Nigeria intact. We must put our differences behind. We must let everybody know that human beings cannot live together without some differences. But at the end of the day, our country is Nigerian. It must always come first.
Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
Where's your mom?
Today is her toilet day.
What?
Helen!
Toilet day?
Tomorrow you're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation.
Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with all this, it still won't be party ready.
Impossible!
Challenge? New Tika Harpic 10X. Even if you use this solution 10 times, it won't give you the same cleaning like Harpic. Its new Tika formulation sticks to the bowl better, removes old stains, and gives you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow!
New Harpic 10X
Gives me the freedom from toilet day.
New Harpic 10X for 10 times better cleaning.
We have come to the end of another successful year, and we wish to appreciate all those that mean so much to us: our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, and above all, you, our esteemed viewer. Together, we made 2019 great. Together, we shall make 2020 even greater. That is why we say, thank you. This is wishing you Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
All right, welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, the ECO single currency has been in the works for well over 2 decades. In this background put together by our correspondent Kule Adeye, he gives us an overview of the intricacies involved in trying to launch the currency. I guess before we bring in our guests to discuss the issues in further detail.
It is a proposed legal tender for countries in the West African sub-region. The goal is to ease trade among member states since ECOWAS citizens already enjoy unrestricted movement. With several protocols brought into treaty after a meeting of finance ministers and central banks governors of the region, it was agreed that the currency will debut in 2020, though in some selected countries. Consequently, a central bank is expected to be set up for the implementation of the currency. ECO is expected to boost economic development in the West African sub-region, improve cross-border trade, facilitate price stability, and compete with other global currencies. The development, which many have seen as a liberation from the grip of the region's economy by France, is now generating another hit. The contention now is that the currency is in the guise of new economic colonialism. Nigeria, being the largest economy in Africa and the West African sub-region, has always been instrumental to the economy of these regions. With the alleged unprofitable terms and conditions of the proposed currency, some have argued that Nigeria should not be signatory to its implementation, while some have thought otherwise. Now in 2020, the implementation year, should the region go ahead with the plan or put it on hold? These and many more will be adequately analyzed on Good Morning Nigeria.
Well, thank you, Kunle Adeye, for that background report. And now joining us in the studio to discuss the ECO currency. First is Professor Ken Ife, an economic policy analyst. Thank you, Prof, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, as always.
All right, so another individual who will be part of this conversation, of course, is Ken Ukoha. Ken Ukoha is the President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
So we have 2 Kens here in our Abuja studio.
Right.
That's interesting. And again, let's go to our Lagos studio, where we have the Director General of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he's Dr. Moda Yusuf. Doc, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, all 3 guests, of course, are familiar guests on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin by, again, getting some more background with respect to the ECO single currency. Professor Ken Ife, we're hearing now ECO currency, it's been a buzz for about 2 decades, but it doesn't appear to have gained quite some traction. What is all the story?
3 fundamental tracks on this. One track is a history of franc, CFA, going back to 1945, 1991, the
the central banks kicked in and they started holding their reserves. And all that story continued. And they were waiting in the wings for 2020 when the WAMS nations would have come together and then they will meet us. So they have been waiting on the wings. And we have been struggling with the West African monetary zones to meet the convergence criteria, which 4 are primary and 6 are secondary. And the issues around that. So in judging them, we have to be, first of all, recognize that for them in the Francophonie, that they've achieved a milestone of having to begin the process of detangling themselves from French economic strangulation. So that is one part of the story. But for us, there's a minefield. The third angle in there is that in 1991, we have the Abuja Plan of Action, where the part of the agenda for African Economic Community is a commitment that by 2028, they will deliver a central bank of Africa and a single currency for Africa. So we have to take these tracks together as we begin to look at the implication of what that announcement that was made, so that Nigeria will have to evaluate its position. But I have to say something. If you look at these 10 criteria, each and every one of these 10 criteria has massive implications for trade policy, investment policy, fiscal policy, monetary policy, industrial policy. So we shouldn't stampede the government in taking a quick decision on this because of the ramification of each and every one of these criteria. I just wondering, Professor Kern, if I would like you to further elaborate on this. In the West African sub-region, you have the CFA currency that's used by the Francophone countries. And then the English-speaking countries in West Africa have their own national currencies. In Nigeria, of course, we have the Naira. In Ghana is the cedi. In Liberia is the Liberian dollar. Sierra Leone, and then and the Gambia. They each have their own currencies. So, what exactly, from the historical perspective, was the motivation for saying, all right, let's merge all of these currencies, bearing in mind that the CFA always had its linkage with the French franc, which of course now has been absorbed by the euro on account of the common currency in the European market. The motivation is consistent with the theory of deepening regional trade and achieving greater economic integration of West Africa and by consequence Africa. But some of those now, those theories are being challenged. In the last meeting, 2 additional convergence criteria were raised, socio-economic and political, saying if the whole purpose of this currency is to intensify trade, we haven't actually seen the trade. What we are having is smuggling of goods, dumping of goods. Let's converge on that. And the second one says you can't have trade and economic development if you don't have peace. So we have to have convergence on cross-border crime, terrorism, and all that. So you've seen 2 other convergence criteria have actually shared up or came up beyond the macroeconomic convergence criteria, which are 10. And the second thing, of course, is how do we migrate all this to a continental platform? And I have to warn that the difficulties we are having in EPA negotiation today, we didn't sign. But we didn't opt out in 2003. If we had opted out, if Nigeria has opted out in 2003, we would have been in a position to say to EU, come, let's now do a bilateral, just as South Africa has done. So if we face the prospect that on balance is not going to favor Nigeria, then we should opt out and say, okay, we have an excuse. Let's walk through the Africa program to 2028. And at the same time, go and look at what has been put on the table, which is in the context of AFCTA, we have Afrexim Bank leading on cross-border settlement system. And you've seen that Sierra Leone is talking to Nigeria on bilateral currency swap, just as we have sorted it out with China. So we have to look at alternative means of delivering cross-border settlement system, rather than take a rash decision and then condemn the economy to something that you don't even know the depth of it.
Well, gentlemen, there's no gainsaying the fact that the African nations concerned, or the ECOWAS nations concerned, have not met the convergence conditions set out for themselves and by themselves about 21 years ago. That brings in the complexities that Professor Ken has been able to analyze. Of course, the ramifications are very clear, and it will be a huge risk for any nation to get involved without those clarifications. Let's turn to Ken Ukwaha. Economic integration is usually done in stages. We have cited EU as an example in the opening remarks that were Kingsley mentioned, which begins, of course, with a preferential trading area or free trade area, and of course harmonization of monetary union. Now the first stage is yet to take its root. That's having a free trade area. There seems to be bottlenecks here and there. What, in your opinion, are these bottlenecks, and how can they be resolved for the ECOWAS nations to attain the desired monetary union?
Thank you very much. First, it's important to correct the impression that we do not have a free trade area. We do. ECOWAS has a free trade area today. And that's exactly what gave rise to the ETLS, ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme.
Functional trade area.
Yeah. Now, we'll head to that. And then if we have the ETLS in place, and of course, this was the foremost integration process and policy in place since ECOWAS was set up in 1975. The very first was this ETLS, which came up in 1979, reviewed in 1993. And today, it also gave rise to these three rights that we normally talk about. These are the protocols on rights of free movement, the rights of residence, and the rights of establishment. And these are very clear. Now, but moving into implementation, and of course, we know that there have been, West Africa have been saddled with the issues of, problematic challenges. I combine that language, problematic challenges in terms of border crossing, in terms of trade transactions across the border, and in terms of implementing these three protocols that are tied to trade. But let's jump a bit more. ECOWAS has also moved towards the economic integration, towards facilitating and fast-tracking actions on tariff, which is an instrument for trade. Now, in that regard, we have a common external tariff, which has been adopted for third-party transactions. But here, we are now looking towards a common market. Now, one of the components of that common market and common custom is custom union, which has been created within that concept of a common external tariff. But the other angle to that is this common monetary union, which we are talking about today. Looking at this on the table, the question would be, are we ripe for a common monetary union? As an ECOWAS, my answer is yes. Are there hiccups on the road? The answer is also yes. Are there things that every country must look at, circumvent, to ensure that we get to a common destination? The answer also is yes. What are these? One, if you look at the AFCFTA that my brother and colleague talked about, the AFCFTA in the first stanza talked about regional economic communities being a building block to African Union and Agenda 2063, and also a building block to AFCFTA. Now, if that is the case, it means that whatever we're doing here, where the African Union has set up 2028 as its own, timing, a framework for common monetary union, common currency, then it means that whatever ECOWAS is doing now is latching as a building block towards that operation. But then I think it's necessary for us to look beyond this economic conundrum. Look at the political aspects as well, which he drew from the two other resonating, if you like, criteria that just came in few weeks before the meeting of the heads of states, namely the issue of security, convergence in ensuring that cross-border crimes are dealt with, and we also have partnership in that regard. Two, social component, which talks about human beings, because it is the human beings that will trade with this money. How safe are they? How secure are they? And what do you do in terms of their health, education, and all of that? These are criteria that the founders of the common currency, common monetary union did not look at initially, namely the European Union. They never looked at these two because it wasn't glaring in their face. It wasn't staring at them. But now it is staring at the face of West Africa. We need to also look at them holistically and critically and see where we are marching so that we don't march into fire. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken Okoha, there for your exposition. Let's go over to Lagos and join Muda Yusuf of LCCI, that's the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Muda Yusuf, from a business perspective, what's your take on the eco-currency that is supposed to be launched this year?
Thank you very much, and once again, Happy New Year to you and to all Nigerians. First, let me say that the issue of the eco-currency or monetary union is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And the end is to deepen economic integration. Following from your background reports and the comments made by both yourself and your colleague, we need to look at and evaluate the progress so far with regard to economic integration agenda of ECOWAS. We started with the free trade area, and the main anchor of that is the ETLS. If you talk to those in business today, there are still a whole lot of challenges with the free trade area. And that is why when we look at all this discussion around the ECO, I think we need to also review our priorities when we come to integration issues. The ECO and the monetary union is essentially about the payment system. And given the sophistication in the financial services sector, globally, of course, Nigeria inclusive, issues of payments for international trade is becoming less of a problem because of the sophistication, because of the globalization of financial markets. You can sit in your bedroom and do transactions across the globe, including the West African sub-region. Of course, I take the point that over 50% of trade in the sub-region is informal. So most of them perhaps don't go through the banking system and all of that. But if you talk to the formal sector operators who are engaged in trade, issue of currency, issue of payment system is not such a big issue. The biggest issue, which I think we should be addressing when we talk about economic integration, and this has been confirmed by many practitioners in business, particularly those who trade across borders, is the problem of the non-tariff barriers. When I say non-tariff barriers, I mean the problems created by agencies of government across the sub-region. That is the biggest headache to economic integration and to trade. Between Agbara and Seme, for instance, you could count between 15 to 20 checkpoints. And exporters in the sub-region, at least from Nigeria, have also narrated their terrible experience with the Beninois agencies, whether police and all of that. The same thing at Togo. So they go through a whole lot of issues with agencies raising different issues concerning documentation, taxation, all sorts of things. So there is a major issue with these non-tariff barriers. Secondly, compliance with the ETLS is still very, very weak, especially between trade taking place between the Anglophone and the Francophone countries. The level of compliance is very weak. And I must remind you that it is this poor level of compliance that led to the closure of the border. The compliance is almost zero. For instance, let me give you an example, which some of my members have also related to me. The transit charge for cargo going across some of these West African countries is supposed to be 1% of the invoice of the cargo. In Benin and some other Francophone countries, they charge as high as 6.5%. And when people engage them, they say, well, they don't have their oil, they don't have oil, the only thing they have is all these issues of trade. So the level of compliance at the level of ETLS with the protocol is so weak that even the free trade area, which is supposed to be one of the preliminary stages of economic integration, we are still grappling with. The same thing with the customs union. The customs union is about adding to the free trade area the issue of the common external tariff. In many of the countries, apart from what you have in the schedule of tariffs, you have another line of items imposing all manner of taxes, even including Nigeria. We have the import adjustment tax, which could sometimes be as high as 50%. So we have a whole lot of issues dealing with even the preliminary stages of economic integration. We have not been able to sort out that. We are talking about monetary union. And in any case, where is the discipline to ensure that this convergence criteria will be met? I mean, evaluations have been done. Only 1 or 2 countries met it once or twice. And it's even one thing to meet the criteria. It's another thing to sustain the compliance with the criteria. So we know what it is with political structures in West Africa. It is easier in the Francophone country because of the influence of France and all of that on them. But for the Anglophone countries, it's not going to be that easy. So my take, and the take of many people in business, is that the issue of currency, payment system, monetary union is the least of our problem. The bigger issue is to deal with all these obstacles to trade. We also have issues with transportation. You can't move goods easily by sea. You have to go by road. You don't have railway connection that can connect all these countries in the sub-region. And how do you trade if you don't have very smooth connectivity? Then there's also the issue of language. You get to some of these countries, you have to be looking for an interpreter to help you to talk to your business partner. So these are the bigger issues to deal with. So the hype around ECO and all of that, I think we need to relegate it a bit to the background, because we need to deal with all these bigger issues which businesses are confronting.
Thank you, Dr. Moda Yusuf. You have actually hit the nail on the head, because you raised a very pertinent issues that should be dealt with first of all before you talk about monetary union, if I understand you very clearly. Gentlemen, he has raised some points here. And formal monetary unions in which 2 or more countries agree to give up their national currencies for a single shared currency. They are not events, they are not rare events, they are rare events in the international monetary cooperation. Apart from the EU, it's not working elsewhere, if I am right. And ECOWAS nations decided on ECO currency when most of the ECOWAS nations are lagging behind in terms of local manufacturing, unbalanced budget, poor economic conditions, and other things, that are not in the right places for us to commence a monetary union. And that's one of the points Dr. Yusuf, has made. Professor Kenife, we're going to take a short break, really. But before that, let's, Kenife, touch on these aspects raised by Moda Yusuf.
Well, Yusuf raised a very important issue about non-tariff barriers, but it's not just non-tariff barriers, there are other barriers. And we've seen it. We've seen Dangote give his evidence that by the time his goods moves from Nigeria through Benin, there are about 15 tariffs. He moves through Togo, another 17 tariffs or 19, then Ghana 10. And that cement arrives at Ghana at 39% more increase in the price. And then now is even banned from even entering Benin. So we are no longer sure what we are doing in terms of the implementation of our ETLS, in terms of our implementation of, and you also see what is going on with free movement, where we are not even sure the safety of our citizens in some of the places we are purporting to do business. So I think we need to get our priorities right. I support regional approach to economic integration. I really, really support it, but not at the expense of everything that you have. If we're having challenges with 0.5% of our customs revenue going into supporting an ECOWAS community, we should be a bit conscious about what happens to 99.5% of our revenue to make sure that we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. So we have to have a better discussion of these matters.
Okay, Professor Kanife, thank you very much. Kirian, just before we pop the question to Professor Kanife, you were asking whether the monetary union works anywhere else. We have one in Southern Africa, the Round Monetary Union. It's been in existence for several decades. It involves South Africa, Lesotho, Namibia, right, which used to be Southwest Africa, as well as Swaziland, which is now known as Eswatini. Botswana used to be part of it until it pulled out sometime in the 1970s. But we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with more aspects of the conversation.
My name is Giato Adeza Adams, the General Manager, Corporate and Strategic Communications, Nigerian Port Authority. As regards the land borders closure, available statistical data from APMT, which is one of our terminal operators that is involved in container handling terminal, has recorded an increase of 200 TEUs of cargoes into their terminal as a result of cargo diversion from the vessels originally meant for our neighboring countries. That shows you that the terminal operators is going to have an increase in revenue, which is accrued to the terminal, and at the same time, Nigerian Port Authority will equally benefit from the revenue increase. So that is the benefit we have derived from the border closure.
You people sell imported materials here. As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, so you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And Kingsley will now have to ask the question he's been itching to ask.
Well, that's right, Kira. I was just going to say, ask Professor Ken if, look, I'm holding here the highest denomination of the Nigerian naira, which is 1,000 naira. But a currency isn't just a piece of paper. It's one of your national symbols, and the fact that it's a legal tender means that there is a lot of weight behind it. There are a lot of institutional arrangements behind it. So how easy is this going to be for the eco currency? What do we know about the currency in the first instance?
Okay, it's a piece of paper, but it has to have value. The value of that currency is predicated on a foreign reserve that is able to support the value of that currency. In the case of Nigeria, we see that we spend over 1 trillion naira every year supporting this currency. So if that ascends to equal, who is going to pump money to support this currency for the 15 member nations? The UMO have been, France has been supporting their currency, the French central bank. But then they don't even know how much reserves that they have. All they know is that they earn so much, but they don't know even the value. And that's why one of the problems we have in trying to, we don't know the value of the CFA. Because you don't even know. So how do you know? Every day, if you buy $100 million with naira, you could see it reflect on the value of the naira. If you buy or sell, you see it reflect. But you don't, because there are somebody's holding their monetary policy and their reserve and using it to defend that money. But you don't know how long that piece of string is. So it's a very important discussion. And many things affect it as well. Debt. The level of debt that you are exposed to. And you know we are the lowest debt constituency in Africa. And you could see some of our member states are over 100% debt to GDP ratio. I think Ghana is about 68% debt to GDP. So all of these will come in. When Mrs. Thatcher was considering 1981-82, I was there in UK. That was when I went to UK, 1981. She asked a central question. She asked them, they said, what will happen if my currency comes under attack? You're asking me to join this currency. And how about debt? They told her, no bailout. And she got angry and walked out of the meeting. And now, that no bailout turned out to be bailout for Greece. So, the fact of the matter is that they opted out. Even when she left, John Major came and tried to enter, and then one day we had a serious attack on our currency. We lost 5.5 billion pounds and we crashed out of the arrangement. But the fact of the matter is that Brexit was not fought on an economic principle. It was fought on political. So UK continued to do business. Free trade area working perfectly well. Customs union was working well, and they still worked well without being roped into the euro. So that's a very big lesson for the position of Nigeria. And if we are going to hope to be the underwriter and the so-called defender of the eco currency in West Africa, then the argument will change fundamentally.
Okay, I think the point you've made there that is clear to me is that there's a possibility of a particular country belonging to an economic integration system, if you like, a monetary union, without actually, trading your own currency.
You can opt out. When the conditions are right, you will consider opting in.
Okay. Now, that brings us to the issue of the political component in all of this. Due to large differences in the political systems among the 15 nations, we have Francophone and then Anglophone countries that make up the ECOWAS nations. Now, should there be a political unification as a way of creating enabling environment for the actual economic integration to take place? Ken.
Thank you very much. First, I thought that the money that was brought out by Kingsley would have, been sent here so that we can examine.
You are the trader now. What are you selling? If you sell something, I will pay.
You're the trader. Where
are the services here?
Services. All right, we'll work out the payment systems later.
Okay.
Whether Yusuf will be the intermediary
in Lagos. IPPIS.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I totally agree with Muda's viewpoint. Much as I believe that the single currency would do a lot for West Africa in terms of facilitating trade, in terms of increasing transactions, in terms of bringing more bonding to economic transactions and growth, including development, in terms of distribution of wealth among the member states. But I think we need to be circumspect. We need to be cautious to prioritize what exactly do we do at this point of our integration process. Now, that brings me to the political question. where you have 350 million population in ECOWAS, and Nigeria has about, over 200 million, which gives you, give and take, about 2/3 of the population of West Africa. And you have 15 member countries. And at every given meeting, you have one vote. What does this spell? At the end of the day, there is a creation, according to the resolution of the heads of states made on the 21st of December 2019, just last year. Paragraph 17 of the resolutions created this ECO. Paragraph 18 created the symbol and went ahead to create a central bank of West Africa. Now the question, both economic and political, now comes to bear. One, what will be the role of this central bank of West Africa? What will be the political underpinning in terms of leadership of that central bank? Three, since countries have not met the criteria, both primary and secondary, what role would the central bank be playing in case of any currency crash or trade crash? Four, once you are into a common currency, it also signifies that your macroeconomic environment and policies are tied thereto. If that is the case, where will be Nigeria in the next 10 years? Given all our macroeconomic policies now deposited at a political head where you may not have more than one vote. And don't forget that all these criteria have not been met economically, but a political decision is being taken to superimpose and then take over the currency and all the actions. But beyond this is the finger that is unseen, and I'm going to explain this. Where UEMOA, which has 8 member countries, has its own institution, the UEMOA, and there is some kind of parallel institution called ECOWAS. And these two are moving in the same region. And we are talking about integration, but there is a parallel movement. Where, at what point will UEMOA fizzle out? At what point will the macroeconomic environment and all the policies be rolled into ECOWAS? Let's shift a bit.
And what's the role of France?
Let's shift a bit to the role of that finger I talked about, external. There is a finger that has been monitoring everything that the UEMOA and the franc CFA and the Francophone zone has been doing economically. That means they are in charge. And as Prof rightly put it, they are in control. Here we come now. They are saying we are adopting ECO, a single currency. What happens where the 8 now becomes 15? Are we going to say there is an extension of the boundaries from 8 countries to 15? That means Nigeria is now covertly part of the ECO. You know why? Because it is linked to Euro. And who is in charge of Euro? You and I know. So, what it means is that your political diplomacy, your economic diplomacy, all of these have been taken surreptitiously over by a conduit that you do not understand.
Okay,
we need to be very careful.
All right,
Thank you.
Ken Okoha, thank you very much. Mother Yusuf, I'd like you to also respond to some of the issues that have been raised. I'm sure that some viewers will say, okay, politics is driving eco-currency, indicative of the presence of political will, which is very important, rather than for the currency itself being an economic issue to be driving politics. But from the experience of the European Union and therefore the euro currency, we do know that there are all kinds of issues that are pertinent to this. For instance, the management of the macroeconomic environment. And you know that after the initial founding members and towards greater integration, that's the Maastricht Treaty of 1991, it became near impossible for you to just become a member of the EU unless you met certain vital criteria with regard to your macroeconomic environment. So you don't come in to destabilize, the European Union, although Greece proved to be a different, if not problematic, instance in this particular regard. So, in West Africa, from your business arrangements that we see, do we have a mindset that we are ready, for this single currency? We are ready for this ultimate pitch, as it were, of economic integration? Or we're just playing around with ideas?
Thank you very much. First, let me say that the macroeconomic convergence criteria that have been highlighted are good for any economy to run well. They talk about the level of deficit, they talk about the level of CBN financing, they talk about tax to revenue ratio. These are all issues that we have been discussing even within the context of the Nigerian economy. So in terms of best practice for economic management, we can endorse those criteria, not necessarily for purposes of integration, but for purposes of running our economy well. But as for comparing the EU with what is being proposed in ECOWAS or in Africa, I think it's like comparing apple and orange. Because the quality of institution that you have in Europe is not the same thing as the quality of institutions you have in the West African sub-region and in many of the African countries. And if you don't have the right kind of institutions, and when I talk about institutions, it's about economic institutions, it's also about political institutions. Given the quality of the institution that we have, I'm not confident that we can run with this. Otherwise, it will become another very big distraction. What is important for us as a country is to fix our own economy. That is number one priority. We are grappling with issues of productivity, we are grappling with issues of power, infrastructure, issues of regulation. These are issues we should address. If you fix our economy, the economic operators, the business people will do business across the sub-region, integration or no integration, and we will get value from it. But given the kind of institutions that we have in the sub-region, and that is why I like the idea of the additional 2 criteria that have been brought on board, because that points to the core issues that drive even the success of all these things we are talking about: the political structure, the economic structure, the security issues, and so on. Now we have the free movement within this West African sub-region. We have the West African, the ECOWAS passport. Look at the kind of security problems it has created for us in Nigeria and in some other countries. So that speaks to fixing key institutional issues. If you look at the institutional standing or institutional quality of many of these countries in the sub-region, you cannot say that they are ready for this. It is one thing to meet the criteria, it's another thing to sustain those criteria. Some of them have political instability problems. You have coups here, threats of crisis here and there. How do you hold such countries accountable? Who is going to carry the can? So I will argue that first, we should fix our own economy. Second, in terms of integration, we should identify the critical bottlenecks to integration, which I highlighted earlier, the non-tariff barriers, the issues of connectivity within the sub-region, and the issues of compliance with the current level of integration we are operating in. I'm talking about the free trade area and the customs union. Let's make that work first before we begin to go into the conversation around the monetary union.
So to you, it's just jumping the gun. There are things that need to be done before we can graduate into having a monetary union, which of course all our guests have been able to raise from different perspectives. But what really is also worrisome is the fact that in our banter earlier on, we mentioned that the president of Cote d'Ivoire, President Ouattara, and Macron of France speedily made an announcement, before the authority of ECOWAS, heads of state and government. So why such a rush to take a decision? In fact, many are termed that as an intrusion into an exclusively ECOWAS matter. Ken, in 30 seconds, can you just speak to this?
Well, I have no problem with that, because that announcement came a day after the heads of state meeting. The heads of state should say, well, that's not what we agreed in our meeting. Why do you make the announcement? It's not for us to bother about that. Secondly, they have been patient. The CFA zone have been patient, waiting for the WAMZ countries, Nigeria, Ghana, and all that, to get our act together and come up with the ECO. And in 2020 is their year of economic independence. It's already written in their brain, and they are waiting for it. So you can't tell France to postpone their year of economic independence. So we have to celebrate with them the fact that they have earned one milestone in that journey. But it's not the end of the matter. It's the beginning of another big matter.
So they have to free themselves completely first?
Of course, they're in the track. But unlike Nigeria, Nigeria has the freest central bank in Africa, I can say that, and has risen to a level of self-regulation. We have been controlling our monetary policy. They have no control of their monetary policy. They don't even know what monetary policy is, because their monetary policy is controlled by somebody else, French institutions. So they don't have that experience. But we have. All those 10 indicators, macroeconomic, Nigeria has been battling with those have been international best practices on which we have been running our macroeconomy, and we are very fine achieving most of them.
So others have to play catch up, as it were. All right, Professor Kenife and the other guests, we have a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers. We'll take those tweets now. Until Sunday, the ECO currency will ease on harmonized trading among member countries, and where Nigeria stands to gain a lot because of the economic viability in our country. I just hope it's implemented with all sincerity.
Now, Marinho, he said, why should France want to control these countries because of ECO? Are we not going back into elite slavery? Do they not stand to sabotage our economy because of free trade? Do we stand to gain anything substantial from this? All these questions need to be answered.
Akeju Olagbaju, now it's a decision in haste for Nigeria to embrace ECO currency. As of today, we're yet to determine the true value of the Naira. We're still grappling with the volatility of the Naira as a currency. And if we migrate to ECO, the economic consequences could be devastating.
Now, Oladimeji Morufu, he said our leaders must think twice.
Bashiru, a good indicator of how Nigeria will fare with the ECO is to look at the EU. Strong economies with productive capacities such as Germany do well with single currency, while weak ones with huge debts such as Greece are worse off. Worse still, you can't devalue and compete with a single currency.
Chris Simeon says if Nigeria adopts ECO as a single currency, it may affect her economic activities and purchasing power. However, those ECOWAS countries adopting ECO are Francophone countries. They will benefit most in terms of trading aspects.
Festus Akinboye, well, as great as a single currency within ECOWAS is, it may not benefit some member countries like Nigeria because it may be difficult to balance the economy, economies that are totally different without damaging one and boosting the other. We don't want to be bailing out weaker states if things go wrong.
Indojesit Williams, he said that presumably the ECO system or single currency will facilitate trade, lower transaction costs, and facilitate payments amongst ECOWAS 385 million people. A single currency would also prove a valuable instrument in the international monetary system.
Now, Dole Jack Solomon, ECO, if properly implemented, will boost economic development in the region and improve cross-border trade. However, the lack of integration policies among member countries is something to worry about. A single currency will only work if all the countries involved are economically aligned.
Now, Nuru Bobak Honkol, he said Nigeria will not gain anything if we join ECO. There will be no CBN, no Naira, no Nigerian monetary policies, and Nigerians will lose huge job opportunities. I suggest Nigeria to stay away from ECO currency.
Ibrahim Moduaji tweets, now rushing to implement ECO currency will spell danger for our economy as the country is promoting and encouraging made in Nigeria goods. Government should seek the advice of experts before implementing. All right, so it's on that note, I would like to thank you for sending in your tweets, and we also would like to appreciate our three guests. From Lagos, we were joined by Muda Yusuf, who is Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Muda, thanks a lot for being with us this morning. Here with us in the Abuja studios, our deep thanks also to Ken Ukoha, who is President of Nigerian Traders Association. Thank you very much for being with us, and good morning, Nigeria. Last but not the least, economic analyst, Professor Ken Ife. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
We would like to thank our viewers who sent in their tools because, of course, we started pretty late and they waited and joined and, of course, they made their own contributions to the conversation.
All right, so we thank you for tuning in. Good Morning Nigeria returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Do have a nice day.
And I'm Kieran Umayo. Have a great Monday.